Hey, Kua.
Hey, Kendra.
We are back in the studio for episode 7. Yes.
Episode 7.
Episode 7.
Okay.
I know. We have some other things in between, which we'll be excited to announce
soon. Very
Yes.
soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, last week we talked a little bit. We missed you, first of all, last week. But we had a great conversation, right? Around business capital. If you didn't hear that episode, go back and listen to it because there were a lot of different gems that were discussed on that episode. Get some money, y'all.
Get some money. It's out here.
It's out here.
Yes.
Right. So we're going to dive right in. It's episode 7. We're going to dive right in. Yes. We actually have a hot topic that we want to talk about. And it relates to us up here in New York State, right? This is exciting news because there's been a lot of conversation around New York State going to marijuana. Yes. I'm saying going to marijuana. You know what I mean? It's now legal here recreationally.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of conversations around what that looks like as it relates to vending now with marijuana. So we know it's recreational. They've also gotten rid of a lot of the criminal offenses that came with it. Right. You can carry up to, I want to say, an ounce.
I think it's an ounce. Yes.
I think it's an ounce of some sort, something like that.
But don't quote us though.
Don't quote us. Y'all look it up. Don't get got. But yeah, so the news comes out of the New York Times, and it says that New York State is set to announce plans for the first marijuana retail sales by the end of 2022. With the first, and this is the caveat, which is really exciting too, the first 100 retail licenses being reserved for people with previous marijuana convictions. And so we know that our own local folks have been on that.
Yes.
The biggest thing about this is that they're trying to really reverse some of the patterns that have happened in the past. There's been a lot of conversations with folks around like what happened in California, right? And a lot of times these licenses are reserved for folks that got money and have a means of really doing this, right?
Exactly.
So the whole idea behind it is to support people who have been previously convicted of offenses, saying y'all should be the first in line. Although there is a big cost that comes with setting up as well. So I mean, and don't quote us on this, but I think it's like $200,000 for the retail license, and then like maybe $20,000 for the application itself. Right. But we also know that there's a lot of legislation that has worked on you being able to have a business and a bank recognizing a marijuana business so you can get a loan.
Right.
So there's a lot to say around this, but the exciting part is that locally we've had people at the forefront.
Yes, we did.
And we say people.
Right. When we say people, we are talking about our own Assemblywoman Crystal D. People Stokes.
Yes.
And this month is Women's International History Month.
Yeah.
And so we're so happy to celebrate those who came before us, but also those who are just paving the way for things like this that Kua just talked about. So Assemblywoman Crystal D. People Stokes, just want to give her a shout out.
Shout her out.
She was elevated to the position of Majority Leader of the New York State Assembly back in December 2018. And she has served as Buffalo's 141st Assembly District since 2003. So she is born and raised in Buffalo. She is so proud of being a Buffalonian, and she is that voice for us in Albany. So we are very thankful for her. She is a strong advocate for people before politics, and we know that to be true. We see her out in the community. She is the first one to arrive. She will talk to the people about our needs.
Absolutely.
And so we're just so thankful for that. And she's a fearless leader in the diversity and inclusion space, and she always makes sure that she ropes in MWBEs, young equity, all those things. And so we just want to give her a special shout out and thank her for all the things that she's doing and just being our voice in Albany, because we know it's definitely needed.
Yeah, and she's the sponsor or co-sponsor of that bill for New York State.
Right.
And I mean, to your point, and being a woman of the people, she's stated in the past, listen, if this equity component is not a part of this bill, she would vote against her own bill.
Exactly.
And she was serious about that.
Yes.
She's held numerous events here locally, the cannabis events, where if you're interested in starting a business in the cannabis industry, she brought people to the forefront to say, talk to these people, make connections and network. So she's awesome.
She's out here. Yeah. She's having those forums, those community forums, and talking to people about the access, right?
Right.
We talk about access a lot on our podcast, and she's providing that way for them too.
Absolutely.
So definitely, make sure that you're following her, the conversations that she's having,
right?
Because we can all benefit from that too.
Absolutely. So more news to come on that end.
Yeah.
I would love to get in that industry personally. I think, talking on a side note, I think there's a lot of opportunity there. They talk about like this. You remember the gold rush and how big of a deal that was? They call it the green rush.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so opportunities exist there. And, you know, when you think about like the war on drugs and who that disproportionately impacted, communities of color, it is now our turn to try to, you know, get in the industry that has some space and opportunity.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
There's
so
that.
that was that. It was a good hot topic.
Right.
So I guess we'll just dive right into our main topic of the day. And there's an article that says "Dress to Impress: Navigating Your Personal Brand in the Grooming Gap."
The grooming gap.
Yes, the grooming gap.
Okay.
So we'll talk about that and what does that mean.
Yes.
But we know that, you know, when it comes to setting up rules, companies have employee handbooks and HR principles in place for just guidelines, right, of how you're supposed to be in the workplace. However, there's unspoken rule where women are expected to look a certain way, and it's called the grooming gap, right?
Yeah.
And so we'll talk about that and what does that mean and how it relates to bias, affinity bias, what does that look like?
Yeah.
And things like that. But the grooming gap refers to standards for physical appearance and hygiene that disproportionately affects women and can lead to personal, professional, and financial consequences.
Yes.
So
when you talk about that grooming gap, right, personal, professional consequences that come when you don't follow suit behind the grooming gap, what are we talking about? What are we talking about specifically?
So when we're talking about some of those things of what that looks like, I mean, women are deemed to be more attractive, getting promotions or better work hours, so they're also paying for, you know, services like manicures and things like that. But people who don't necessarily look the part, quote unquote, right? They're overlooked for promotions. They don't get necessarily the job per se, things like that. And we know that to be true. Some of us has been affected by it. We know people have been affected by it. But I find that it's very interesting also in this article where it talks about that specifically women of color, black women spend about $473 million annually on hair products.
Say that number again.
$473 million annually on hair products.
And we know
this to be true.
We know that to be true because look, exactly, because I was going to point to you and your hair. Because first of all, my co-host is looking great, y'all.
And look at my co-host here.
But her hair is flowing. And so she is, well, we both contribute to
this market.
To that market for sure. But I think you said something that's really interesting to me as it relates to this attractiveness and promotions. And we talk about bias a lot on the podcast, but there is a specific bias. And there's something, and we didn't talk about this, but something called pretty privilege. Right? And so not everybody has pretty privilege. But when we talk about bias, I know in the past we talked about this, like the symmetry of your face. You know, how your face is shaped. We also know that weight is a role in that as well. And there's been statistics that relate to women's their salaries and how that decreases by the pound, essentially, right? So that's something that exists. We also know that if you're deemed to be more quote unquote attractive, that generally there's a pretty privilege that comes along with that. You know,
and we talked about this in a previous podcast.
I think
too,
so.
Right?
I don't remember which one.
I can't remember. I think it was season 1. We dived into that and we talked about some of the commercials out there, like Beyonce. I think was one.
Oh yes,
where she had a lighter skin complexion and things like that. So we know that to be true,
right? Because
people are going to pay for that, you know, prettier look. Quote unquote.
So it was interesting because the article kind of gets into this grooming gap, but it talks about how handbooks, specifically like policies and procedures at organizations, talk about specific grooming, right? And so some of those things that we know of as it relates to like your clothing policy, you know, some people can't wear fake nails, for instance, right? Some people have to wear, you know, their hair a certain way or style a certain way. When you think about like different industries, what does it look like in banking to be considered this professional look? What does that look like in healthcare? Some of those I know come from the nature of like, you know, I have a cousin who's a nurse and she talks about she can't wear her nails a certain length because of the work that she does. So some of that is hazard as it relates to your job, but a lot of that comes from what's considered, I guess, professional in these senses. So I think the other piece of that article that was really interesting that called out specifically black women, who was it?
Minda Harts, who is the founder and CEO of the Memo LLC, which is a great book too.
Yes.
Not to be like, promoting, but it is a really, really great book if you haven't read it. I know a couple of my friends have read it as well. And it really is just talking about being your authentic self in the workplace. And she talks about if you can't be your authentic self, then you should probably just leave. Right. So, but it is a really great book to really dive into some of those things that we deem as professional and really questioning that. What does that look like in industries too? Well,
so it's interesting because Minda said that Black women have been, quote unquote, policed by the majority group since the beginning of time for how they wear their hair, to the nail polish on their fingers. And she also talks about how many employers preach this authenticity in the workplace. So we hear it all the time. Bring your authentic self to work. Come work for us because we allow you to be authentic and bring your full self to work.
Right.
But she questions that as it relates specifically to Black women because she stated that Black women have to decide whose version of authenticity are you bringing to work because history has shown that our versions aren't always welcome.
Yes. Oh, that's deep.
It is
That's
deep.
I mean, even I remember, growing up and getting into the workforce, and so many people said, you have to wear your hair a certain way. You can't have your nails a certain way. You can't wear hoop earrings, right? And it's like, but that's me.
Right.
And I feel like I'm stripping myself to be in this professional realm.
Yeah.
But that's just what you did, right? And I think recently, especially with the Crown Act, and we talked about that in previous podcasts too, with the Crown Act, where you cannot discriminate based off of hair color and texture and things of that nature. Since that is something that's been at the forefront for almost about, I think it's past about 35, 36 states at this point. That's something where now a lot of people are starting to come and being their authentic self and wearing their hair. I mean, I even see there's a huge movement when it comes to newscasters, right? I'm seeing that too, even locally here in Buffalo, but across the nation where you have newscasters stepping out. I'm like, this is me, this is my curls, and you're going to love it. Right. So there is definitely a shift, but there's still that piece there where people look at you like, I don't know if she can actually do her job based off of her hair. Right.
And that's something, I mean, you talk about your personal experiences. I've definitely had that as well. I can think, and we, I think, talked about this even in the past, but a previous job where I applied, and I remember I had like kinky twists at the time. And this was back in, I don't even know if I want to say the year. I'm giving away some years or whatever. Circa. This was probably at least 10 years ago now, but I remember taking my twist out before that interview and straightening my hair because I thought that was something I needed to do back then. Fast forward, that would not be the case now. It definitely wouldn't be the case, but I think, and we've talked about this in the past too, like Congresswoman Ayanna Presley, when she came to the scene and her journey's been even really interesting too, right? Because when she first came out, she was wearing Havana twists, right? She was wearing Senegalese twists. And I remember seeing, I was like, if a congresswoman can wear her hair naturally in different styles, why can't I? Because this is a different level of what's considered professionalism. So, the other pieces we think about our own background, like, having protective styles in, it's a lot easier. I call it the wake and shake.
The wake and shake. You just put the bonnet on. Shake. I feel like we have to explain some of this stuff. The bonnet, the wake and shake, the Senegalese.
Okay, so the wake and shake means I ain't got to do that much, right? I have my hair in braids. I can wake up, take my bonnet off or my headscarf, shake my hair, maybe do a little ting-ting to the side. Ting-ting. And then I can carry on with my day, right? So I don't have to sit here fussing with hair. I don't know. Your hairstyle right now ain't wake and shake.
It is wake and shake.
It is?
It is. I actually just put a bonnet on and I just...
What about the curls though?
They stay. After a while, I only have to curl it like every 4 days.
Okay, well that's still every 4 days.
Every 4 days.
So you got wake and shake for 3 days.
Right. I'm missing my braids. I'll get those in about a month.
Okay.
But no, the wake and shake is definitely something that is needed.
Right.
But also too, like you're starting to see a lot of books and short movies where you're seeing that they're talking about embracing your hair.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think the other part of this conversation too is growing up, you did not see people that looked like
you didn't.
In books, in stories, in movies.
Right.
And so you just thought like, oh, your hair is supposed to be naturally straight or it's supposed to be whatever the case may be, right? And so you didn't see that and it wasn't accepted.
Right.
So now you have things like Hair Love, right? That I think won, was it a Grammy?
Is it Grammy? I know what you're talking
but
about.
won some awards for
Yeah,
hair love. I
yeah.
mean, it's talking about embracing your hair and all those different things. So I think, seeing those images, and now you're starting to see young girls just embracing their curls, embracing their hair. And it's becoming more accepted than it was before, too.
Yeah, and it's like, the article talked about for any company that's not creating an inclusive environment where women can wear their natural hair, then shame on that organization, right? Because the reality is, well, they also say they don't deserve the women who were trying show up with their natural hair, but it's natural hair.
It's natural
hair. It shouldn't be a big deal to wear it. It's how it grows out of your head.
Right.
But we do know that these specific biases around what's professional or not. Like if I wear an afro to work, and I've wore my puff to work before, right? Like I have in between my braids. But yeah, you know what I mean? Or wearing different bouffant styles with my natural hair is something that should not be a big deal.
Right.
It really shouldn't.
I'm laughing to myself because I remember, and I don't know where I heard this from, who said it, but I remember growing up, someone said, if your hair is nappy, they're not happy. And it stuck with me. I'm laughing because I can't believe that was a thing. But that was legitimate a thing, right? Or even I remember after graduating from college, someone took me under their wing and was like, this is the type of makeup you even get, right? This is what you're supposed to wear in terms of makeup, right?
What was that?
So makeup was, and it says it in the article, right? It says whether you have makeup or not, it's more about how you perceive as being ready for the task at hand, right?
Okay.
So a lot of people really think that sometimes if you don't have makeup on, you may be sleepy or lazy. It's that perception as well. And so people will say, well, this is the type of makeup you should get in order to look like this and awake and all that. So it's all those different things. And I was spending so much money on makeup because I thought that would go hand in hand, with your hair too. So it was just very interesting. So this number about the $76 million on hair products. Now add the makeup products to it. You're spending so much money, on just your appearance to go to work.
So I guess that's a good question because I never thought about it as related to makeup specifically either. And what's deemed to be professional or not. Like, do you wear makeup every day?
To work, I do.
Me too.
I do.
Me too.
It's a thing. But remember a couple years ago, Alicia Keys stopped wearing makeup?
She did, but they said it's the non-makeup look.
Yes. She said she was, but that became a big thing,
It
right?
was.
It was a big thing about, oh my gosh, she's not going to wear makeup. She's on TV. What does she look like?
Right.
It's all those different things that play a role of, are you equipped for the job at hand? And it's just interesting to think about.
I guess the bigger question, like if you didn't wear makeup, and that's the thing. People used to seeing you with makeup, so
they just see me like, whoo.
That's the other piece. But I think, some of this too just comes from what you want, right? What makes you feel good. And I think as long as women are deciding what that is, whether I wear makeup or not, whether I wear my hair natural or not, I should be able to show up in my authentic self or whatever that looks like. We know that Black people are not a monolith. Women are not a monolith in that same sense. And so, it's interesting because I think we talk about like the personal brand that comes with this as well. I don't know. Braids, I think, have come to become a part of my personal brand. Natural hair too.
Yeah.
But I don't. Yeah,
it is your brand. Your hair is part of your brand. How you show up is part of your. If you show up with like me. I have straighter hair, but I do straighten my hair, right?
Yeah.
I do wear my makeup. That's my brand, right? I do wear my hair curly sometimes. I do wear braids, but I like that versatility as well.
Exactly.
Where I don't have to question, are these braids good enough?
That's true. I don't have that thought anymore.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, and I think, like I said, those years ago, it was definitely something that was in the back of my head. Like, are they going to consider me this or that? Because there's different connotations that go with it. Right. But, the article says it too, like whether you have makeup or not, it's more about how you're perceived as being ready for the task at hand. And so there's other companies that are having a conversation. I think it was Choice Hotels, that said it wants its employees to bring their whole authentic selves to work, which is why the company doesn't have any policies against tattoos or earrings or nail polish color. But since it's a people-facing business, employees are expected to keep up with personal hygiene,
which is understandable.
Okay,
right? That's understandable.
She added that the dress code in the hotel industry has changed dramatically over the years, and that there were guidelines for women when you started that said you had to wear skirts.
Yep.
It also said you had to wear a matching jacket, but it also you had to have pantyhose on.
Yep.
And having coordinated pieces, even if you know, were in that specific industry. So there is progress being made.
Times are changing.
You know, it's funny because I heard a comment in the past, and this is years ago, like women need to come like hoops and skirts and hoops or something like that. But that just shows you how long ago it was. Because remember the skirts that had the hoops inside of them?
Yep.
I mean, this is probably like early 1900s. I don't know.
The early 1900s.
It had to be early on.
Yeah.
But guys in suits and girls in hoops.
Yeah.
That's what the comment was. But that's shifting. Dressing more casually. I mean, we got a lot of booming industries like tech, right?
Yep.
That people are not as concerned with this. You're wearing some sneakers, you know, you can wear your J's and some jeans.
You know me and my J's.
And be chilling, right? So
and it does not impede on your workability.
Right.
And I think that's what it comes down to is that, you know, no matter what your hair looks like, if you wear makeup or not, if you're casual and dressed, that does not impede on how you look or how you work, right? And I think that we should really start to examine some of this policy and what that looks like. Are we over policing employees in the workplace? You know, obviously, you know, each workplace is different, but really looking at those policies and what does that look like? And I know a lot of even schools, I know we're looking at things like that too, constantly on a yearly basis. To say, are we keeping up with what is acceptable and what's not?
Yeah, and I think, you know, there's different industries that say, well, we're this specific industry and we have to have this specific look. But to me, it also goes to who your customer is and the connection to your customer. I think about healthcare. We employ a lot of people that have lived experience and they are coming from specific communities that we're trying to serve. It's huge, right? And that's why we've even looked at policy to say, look, we got a lot of people doing outreach. You can't go outside with a suit on doing outreach, trying to talk to someone specifically about their health in specific settings. So matching that setting to who you're trying to reach, but then also not limiting your employees in that same sense. So I think there's authenticity that comes from even your consumers or, you know, whether they're patients or customers or what, but not necessarily being so bound by this old way of doing things and being more open to newer ways.
So, I mean, it's definitely a different lens of looking at equity and inclusivity overall too. So, you know, this article definitely hit home in many ways, but I'm definitely optimistic to see how things are going to change over time.
And you know, one topic, and we didn't touch on it today, but I think something in the future too, especially as it relates to women, and maybe we can touch on it a little bit, like just the sense that when you're in a specific profession or you're at a certain level, you have to show up a certain type of way.
Yes.
I don't know if we want to go there.
I think that's a topic for a different, but I know what you mean.
You know where I'm trying to go.
I know what you're going, how you have to, like, you have to show up and you have to just be on constantly.
Right.
And there's minimal room for mistakes.
Yes. And minimal ways for how you can present yourself in different lights. You know, as women who are in a space where we're trying, you know, I think we've done a really great job building our own professional brands. But what does that look like? What does it look like when I want to go on vacation?
And what does it look like on social media? You know, what does it look like? You know, and we know Buffalo's small, right? And and where we are in Buffalo is very small. And, you know, if you show up and, you know, you just want to have just a moment to yourself, people may like, oh my gosh, I can't believe Kendra wore that, or her dress was so short or whatever. Because we know that, you know, our brand is everything. And so that's something we could definitely dive into.
We got to get into that at some point.
For sure, about how you show up on social media. How do you show up in other spaces outside of your professional realm?
Agree.
And what does that look like?
And are the two separate, or do they have to come together, or what does that look like?
I don't know.
Okay.
Let's dive into that.
We're going to dive into that at some point. That's a little, you know, little ting-ting for later.
Little teaser.
So let's, look, I know, gem of the day, and I didn't even think about it.
I know, the gem of the day.
You go first.
I haven't thought about it either. So my gem of the day, I don't know. I wouldn't even say it's like a gem of the day per se, but just, I would say just allow yourself to, you know, sometimes free yourself from the professional world and definitely, you know, not be bound by it 24/7. I know the work that we do, being full-time, basically full-time consultants at this point, but consultants having, you know, a 9 to 5 and doing everything else. For me, I've been really trying to take myself out of that realm a little bit and just literally Netflix and chill. And I've been watching a lot of documentaries lately. And so the one that I've been watching was The Dropout, and it was talking about this woman who started this company out in Silicon Valley, but was basically frauding everyone.
Interesting. I'm gonna have to check that out.
And so I'm not gonna give you all the details.
Don't tell me too much.
I'm not gonna give you the details.
Okay.
But I found it to be just very interesting. And all that to say is just have a moment to just escape. Like whatever your escape route is. For me lately, it's just been a lot of Netflix and chill. A lot of docuseries I've been watching, documentaries I've been watching. But just allow yourself to escape for a moment and just be. And that's where I am. Just be. You know, turn your phone on, put it on Do Not Disturb.
Listen.
Which I've been doing a lot, and sometimes I forgot to take my phone off Do Not Disturb, but it's okay.
Right.
But just allow yourself to be.
I ain't got much to add to that. I think that's a mic drop, in my opinion. Because I'm just gonna lean into that too, right? Like I usually work on Saturdays, and there were a few Saturdays that I took off, and it felt amazing.
Yeah.
So I agree with that. You know, lean into that. I think I will only add, and it relates to kind of what we talked about. Just trying to be more comfortable showing more of your full self. Whether that be, you know, getting some red nails.
Yes, there we go.
Whether that be putting a little color in your hair. But really just showing up as your authentic self and embracing all of that and what that looks like. So that's my little 2 cents.
Gem of the
I
day.
am also watching stuff. I finished the Kanye Genius series.
Kanye's a genius.
Interesting. It was so interesting to me. That's something that people got to check out because it showcases just like the backstory. One of his friends, Cootie, recorded him.
And did you see they got paid $30 million by Netflix for that?
Good for him. I mean, shoot, he deserves it. He deserves it.
Yes.
He deserves it. Good for him. I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's cool. So, yeah, watch something good. Y'all suggest stuff to watch to us, too. We're always looking for things to watch. But I think that's it.
Yes, another episode in the books.
Another episode. We will see y'all next week.
And bye.
Peace.
We off? Now? No? Hey? May?
Hey.
Say?
Hey.
Say?
Hey.
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 Don't say that didn't record.
It didn't record? And I'll see y'all next week.
Whew.
I'll see you next week.
Really?
Oh, the audio is there though, right? The audio's not there?
Oh, okay.
We not the video they record. Oh,
That's okay. Shoot, as long as you got the audio.
Tripping.
As long as you got the audio.
Picture for the YouTube.
Yeah.
The audio. Let's take a picture and put up the picture.
Yeah.
It's okay. Life happens.
You got the audio. Okay, that's all we could look.
Just be life happens.
Listen, just be. We ain't stressed. As long as you got the audio.
J. Cruz.
We
but guess what?
Listen.
Listen.
You got the audio.
Right.
how you know it didn't record? I mean,
Because there was no finish button.
it's right there.
Because I just hit record.
Oh.